Right on. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Celebrate Les. I'm going to say a few things about Les in sort of a general fashion. We have some wonderful folks coming up in a bit who can speak to the nuts and bolts of what Les did much more eloquently than I can. But I'm going to start with a quote from the great producer Bob Ezrin. If you are unfamiliar with who Bob is, go check your record collection. You will find him in the liner notes. Bob said, "Before any of us did anything, Les had already done everything. Without him, there would be no modern recording industry. He is truly the father of everyone who ever pushed a record button or picked up a guitar." Very true. Now, Les's career as an innovator and musician begins way back in the 20s, but I want to talk about 1941. In the lifetime of 1941 America, people's minds were on two growing wars, one in Europe and one in Asia. The Yankees found themselves playing the Dodgers in an all-New York World Series. A newfangled contraption called automatic transmission found its way into automobiles, and in Duluth, Minnesota, a baby boy named Robert Allen Zimmerman was born. Later, he'd change his name to Bob Dylan. A quarter got you into the movies, or 6 tunes on a kaleidoscopic Wurlitzer jukebox. It was the height of the big band era and ballroom dancing. Top tunes of the day were Glenn Miller's Chattanooga Choo Choo, Sammy Kaye's Daddy, and the Ink Spots' I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire. You know all those, right? Setting the world of 1941 USA on fire, however, was an early-stage communications metamorphosis in the cocoon of the electric wire. Across the increasingly wired-up nation, natural sound was beginning to be sublimated by amplified sound. That is to say, there were people beginning to think more in terms of sound waves than just sound. No one understood this better, or more instinctively, than Lester William Pulfus, a.k.a. Rhubarb Red, a.k.a. Les Paul. Although he was born near the beginning of the 20th century, Mr. Paul's instincts belonged more to the end of it, to a far more voltaic medium is the message era. A natural musician, he was fascinated by the flow of electricity as by the flow of music. He would prove to be an American innovator who had an artistic feel for electric current that was as ingrained as Mark Twain's artistic feel for the Mississippi's current. In the early 30s, the up-and-coming professional guitarist began burning his energies on this central vision: a guitar that would produce undistorted electronic sounds. To quote Les, "What I wanted to do is not have two things vibrating. I wanted the string to vibrate and nothing else. I wanted the guitar to sustain longer than an acoustical box and have different sounds than an acoustical box." Mr. Paul's precocious perception was seeing that the presence of electric current changed the entire context of the source. The requirements were different. The acoustic guitar used hollowness to get vibrations. With electricity, the vibrations hurt more than helped. The sound would be purer if the body was non-vibrating, stable, solid. The guitar was not to be the sound producer, but the conveyor. Again, quoting Les, "I picked it up first with 1/2 of a telephone, a magnet, and a coil. Put it under the strings. Then I used the phonograph. I just jabbed the needle into the top of the guitar." I love that. Think of how simple and elegant a solution that is. Think how much we take amplified instruments for granted. Observing that the hollowness of the instruments was interfering with the electronic sound, he realized the solid surface would serve better. "I knew what I needed was a guitar with no holes," Les said. "I chucked rags in it. I poured it full of plaster of Paris. I tried everything with the guitar to try to get it not to feedback and not sound like an acoustical box." He started tinkering in the old Epiphone guitar factory. On his Sundays at the facility, he took a 4-inch by 4-inch piece of wood and attached the sides of a cut-up guitar to it. There it was, a solid, non-vibrating guitar. The inventor guitarist had redesigned some old tools, wood and string, into a new instrument. As we all know, he dubbed it the log. Now, more than 60 years later, the solid body electric guitar has become the biggest all-American wooden cymbal since the baseball bat, or the log cabin. And like the log cabin, the instrument embodies a pioneering spirit that is enduring. And it was pioneered by Les Paul in 1941. Though the time was not quite right for Mr. Paul's vision, prescient as it might have been, in the big band era, the big bang instruments of choice were brass and wind. It was the age of swing, and Les Paul was cooking up an age of string. What's more, there was a general feeling that electronics would cheapen art, not deepen it. That the artistic would become mechanical. In terms of the guitar, that translated into a fear that the naturally sublime resonating wood would be reduced to electronically ridiculousness. And that easier access to playing the guitar, just plug it in, would water down the general quality of music. This predicament was a precursor to the fear and prejudice many have today in the current digital revolution. That electronically transmitted writing, easy internet access, and God forbid, digital music recording, somehow tarnishes the purity of expression. Les wrestled with these short-sighted arguments way back in the 40s, and I imagine it's a bit of a hot topic around here in 2009. Les's innovations with the techniques of sound recording are, of course, no less revolutionary. His groundbreaking inventions in the world of recording have changed the way we perceive music today. Some of the techniques he pioneered are close miking, overdubbing, phase shifting, personal favorite of mine, multi-tracking, and tape echo. Multi-track recording was, more or less, developed by and for Les Paul. These techniques forever changed the way music was recorded and experienced. Les is easily on par with inventors like Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison, and the Wright brothers. He's the only individual with memberships in the Grammy Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the National Inventors Hall of Fame, and the National Broadcasters Hall of Fame. Think about that. In fact, watching Les Paul play an electric solid body guitar or work in a modern studio was akin to watching Henry Ford drive a car, or Thomas Edison change a light bulb, or Alexander Graham Bell make a phone call. As everybody knows, Les played a weekly gig at New York's Iridium Club. That's where I, like so many others, was able to experience the man up close and personal. It was really an incredible experience. Les was a character. He was also quite the ladies' man. A lot of people don't talk about that when they talk about Les, but he liked the ladies. First time I saw him, he was 90 years old and absolutely amazing. Charming, funny, effortlessly virtuosic. The audiences that would watch him at the Iridium were wrought from all corners of the music world. Jazz buffs, rock fans, blues aficionados, pop music lovers, old and young, guitar devotees, recording nerds, male and female, rich, not so rich, unknown, known. Among the known patrons to regularly take in his show at Iridium were Paul McCartney, Keith Richards, Tony Bennett, Steve Miller. They'd sit and listen and look up at him like footnotes at the bottom of a page. When he finished the show, he'd step off the stage and head directly into the audience. He'd shake hands, pose for pictures, swap stories, and sign autographs until everyone in the place had been more or less pulverized by legend access. Sorry for that one. To reframe that picture of Les at the Iridium, in human terms, think about this. A 90-year-old man with debilitating arthritis in his hands, signing dozens of autographs after playing guitar for 90 minutes. It was extraordinary. Les's hands were like gnarled claws by this point. His mitts made Keith Richards' hands look downright dainty. And now he's gone, never to be forgotten. Les Paul had a career in music that lasted 81 years. May you all be so blessed. Please don't observe a moment of silence for Les Paul. Observe many moments of joyful noise and innovation out loud. Godspeed, Les Paul. You'll be missed. Thank you.